Hey, so I've been meaning to make this video for a long time now. Whether you're a beginner starting your tennis journey, or even you're somebody looking to help a beginner, maybe that's your family member, a friend, or even if you're a coach, then this video is going to be great for you, as I've put together 3 of my top tips for beginners to help them to start their journeys right, along with 3 of my favorite drills that you can put these tips into practice with. Now, don't worry if you're an intermediate or even an advanced player, because being a great tennis player is all about doing the basics well. And so the drill ideas that I give you in this video are not only designed for beginners, but I'm going to add progressions that can help you if you're an advanced player as well. Now, don't worry, we're not going to stay in this room. We're going to head out onto court in a second. But the reason we're not on court just yet is the weather is horrendous here in the UK right now. This is my current view. Tip number 1 is feet first. And what I mean by this is that you should prioritize your footwork and your movement over your racket skills. Now, you may have seen I've made a video titled Technique is Overrated. And in that video, I talk about the most important elements to improve your tennis game. And none of them are to do with your technique. One of the biggest mistakes that players make when they start their tennis journey is they work primarily on their technique. They work on making their shots look good and often look technically great on the court, but really struggle to string together a point. Now, this would be great if you were playing golf and you were using a ball that was static on the floor. But as we know, tennis is a 360-degree sport. Tennis balls travel at you at all different speeds, heights, depths, spins, and directions. And so every single shot you hit is going to be different. And so mastering one technique on your forehand isn't going to cut it. If you're serious about starting your tennis journey well, I would thoroughly recommend focusing on your footwork and your movement first, and prioritizing the 4 R's: being ready, reading the ball, reacting to the ball, and then recovering after you've sent it back. By working on these 4 skills, your tennis will improve rapidly. And although some of the drills I'm about to show you don't even involve a racket, once you get a racket in your hand, your skills are going to be much higher than they would be if you start your tennis journey by hitting forehands and backhands. So let's head on to court and I'll explain more. So although the weather's still pretty grim, it's definitely going to be better for you to watch me demonstrate these exercises on a tennis court. Now, as I mentioned upstairs, ready, read, react, and recover are the 4 areas that you really need to prioritize first when you're starting your tennis journey. I think it was Roger Federer that said the best tennis players in the world are the best movers, and I completely agree with that. Now, this exercise that you can see me doing with Ollie is called a catch match. And all you're going to do is you're going to play a match against a player at the other end with no racket, just simply throwing and catching the ball over the net. You're going to use the 4 service boxes, and the only rule is when you've got the ball in your hand, you're not allowed to move. So wherever you move to catch the ball, you've got to stay there before you release it and then recover back to the middle. As you can see, this is not only sharpening our movement, but it's also helping us to learn how to anticipate the oncoming ball. You've got to read the direction and the depth of the oncoming ball, as well as how high it's going to bounce, as if you don't, it's going to be really difficult to catch. You'll see that Ollie and I are ready for the oncoming ball as our eyes are looking down the court and our feet are nice and wide and athletic, ready to pounce on the oncoming ball. Plus, once we've sent the ball back to the other end, we're recovering really quickly so that we're ready for the next ball. Now, although this exercise looks pretty basic, I still do this exercise with my advanced players, as it can get super competitive and it really sharpens your focus and your footwork. And if you want to make it more challenging, you can add a second ball, which will mean that you have to move much quicker. If you do this exercise enough, even without using a tennis racket, you can really improve most of your tennis skills. You're improving your anticipation and reading skills, your footwork and movement, your balance, and more importantly, your tactical awareness, as you're starting to utilize the space at the other end of the court and recover to the most suitable position. And so without even knowing it, you're starting to form into a pretty good tennis player. Next up, let's get a racket in your hand. Sorry to interrupt, but just very quickly, if you're enjoying this video, you know what to do. Hit that thumbs up button, and if you haven't done so already, I'd love it if you'd consider subscribing. Let's get back to the video. Tip number 2 is that everything should revolve around your contact point. When I talk about contact point, it's simply the point in which your racket meets the ball. Naturally, if you can get this right, in the right position and pointing the right angle, the ball is going to go where you want it to. And hopefully, if you spent enough time doing exercises like the catch matches from before, you're already halfway there to getting a good contact point. But now we're going to talk a little bit more about the swing. Now, when you watch professional tennis players play, especially when they're trying to hit big shots, you'll notice that they have pretty big swings. Now, this is good when you become an advanced player, as it's a good way to generate power. However, when you're starting your journey, you actually want to do the opposite. The problem with a big swing for less experienced players is it takes too long and there's more that can go wrong. Because we're still at a stage where we're not judging the ball as well as Novak Djokovic, it's going to take us slightly longer than him to prepare our racket. And so if we've got a really big backswing, by the time the racket's behind us, the ball's probably already gone. Whereas if you have a more minimal backswing, it's much easier to find your contact point. And so what I would suggest to you if you're newer to tennis is start off with smaller swings, and once you build confidence in your contact point, slowly start to increase the size of your swing. That's where you'll start to find power. But at the start, it's all about control and consistency. So smaller swings is the way to go. An exercise that's really good for finding your contact point is two-touch tennis. You can see Ollie and I doing it here. Your aim is to touch the ball up first, then let it bounce, and then hit your shot over the net before your partner taps the ball up, lets it bounce, and then hits it back to you. By having these two touches, it really helps you to develop your finer motor skills and your ability to hit the ball very gently before sending it back over the net. It will also help you to develop better spacing, as you don't want the ball to be too close to you. So after you've done that first touch, you've got an extra chance to move yourself into a better position, giving yourself good space to find a good contact point. And just like I mentioned, it encourages much smaller swings. The first touch in particular is going to be a very small swing, and the second touch will give you more of a chance to swing slightly bigger. Do this exercise until you feel super comfortable, and the next progression is if you do the first touch on your forehand side, your second touch needs to be a backhand, vice versa. Again, this is another exercise that I still do with advanced players, but I do it with them more competitively, so you can even play the point out with two-touch tennis.
Come on! Alex!
Now, before getting into tip number 3, I am going to mention at the end of the video what it means for you when it comes to getting coaching sessions, as this is also going to be an important part of your journey, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, tip number 3 is to compete. Now, you might be thinking, well, I'm completely new to tennis, I'm not ready to play matches, and that is far from the truth. Playing competitively is the best way to develop your skills, as it exposes you to every element of tennis. Now, don't worry, I'm not talking about you playing Carlos Alcaraz at Wimbledon. There are loads of different ways you can play matches, even if you're brand new to tennis. And one of my biggest recommendations is to play in the service boxes using a low compression ball. What a low compression ball does is it allows you to build up a rally with far more ease. It travels through the air slightly slower than a normal tennis ball. It bounces slightly lower, making it much easier for you to build the point. Now, from tip number 1, we've already done catch matches, so you're starting to build an idea of how to utilize the space on the court and where to recover to. The only difference here is you're adding a racket to your hand and you're starting the point with a serve. Once you're comfortable playing points in the service boxes using a low compression ball, then move back to 3/4 and then finally move back to the whole court. Now, ideally, you play these matches with somebody of a similar level to you. However, if you want to play matches with somebody that's better than you and more experienced, there are lots of different ways that you can do it that's going to make it beneficial for them as well as you. Firstly, you can use different court sizes. If your opponent is more advanced than you, then you could say that they can only hit the ball into one half of the court, whereas you can hit the ball wherever you like. Equally, you could do it singles court versus doubles court to make it more challenging for the person at the other end. If you don't want to mess around with court sizes, you can use a system called the handicap scoring system, which means that after every game that's played, the score changes. So if I'm playing against you and I win the first game, it's 1-love to me. In the next game, you're going to start 15-love up. If I manage to win that game, then in the following game, you start 30-love up, and so on. What this does is it levels things out. And the more games that I win, the more challenging it is for me and the easier it gets for you, and vice versa. And so no matter how good your opponent is, it's going to put them under pressure, and it's going to allow you to have a better chance of winning some games. Now, although I mentioned that technique is overrated, there will become a stage where technique becomes more important for you, as you don't want to be picking up bad habits through the start of your journey. This is where tennis coaching will come in. Now, you can watch tons and tons of YouTube videos, and lots of them will help you. However, I do advise getting some one-to-one coaching sessions, as there's nothing better than having a real coach on the court with you who can pick your game apart and to give you the most personal advice advice. Where technique becomes important is injury prevention and efficiency. If you do have some technical problems within your game, it can put you at risk of injury, but it can also make you inefficient within your shots, limiting your progress. As you'll notice in my videos, I don't go too deep into the finer technical details, as lots of the time these are very personal to you. However, if you follow the tips in this video and pretty much all of my other videos, you'll notice that I talk a lot about doing the basics well, so you can't go wrong. So in summary, focus on your footwork first. Everything revolves around your contact point, and make sure that you compete. Be sure to do those drills in your regular training sessions, even if you're an intermediate or advanced player, as they're only going to help you to hone your skills and master the basics. Thanks as always for watching this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care.
There is evidence of you winning though, earlier.
What, on the throwing?
On the throwing one. I'll delete that though.